It got a little dicey. Auburn out there at the Culture War, Mississippi State, Arizona, a lot of non-conference games here for the SEC. Could have been a lot worse, but Alabama losing to Texas, though a future SEC team, it's really brought about some questions. Danny, is the SEC still the best conference in college football?
Just look at Georgia. I mean, Georgia's won back-to-back national championships, and they probably look like they're going to win again now. So, yeah, clearly they're the best. I mean, they have the number one team in the country. That's what it's about, is how many national championships they've won, right? And they'll probably dominate again in the NFL draft. So, without question, they're the number one conference in the country, right? You can't dispute that. Oh, wait, this year? Or what are we doing this year? Because the goalposts keep moving depending on what year you're talking about. Like, oh, well, this is a down year for a couple of these teams, and the ACC just got hot. They just had a couple wins, but we'll see who wins the national title at the end of the year. Yes, they're down, the SEC. And I think the upon further review is the SEC, and I think it comes even more specific. I think they have a quarterback problem. Like, tell me who their top three quarterbacks are, and if you can't instantly say bam, 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 that's a problem. And then if we could all agree on who the number 1, 2, or 3 is, are any of those three in the top 15, maybe top 20 of quarterbacks in the country? I think they've got a problem this year, and I think it resides at that position, which is killing the conference.
We said this in the preseason. The comment section roasted us for it. We said, if these are your best quarterbacks in the league, it's not a good SEC. Jaden Daniels, if he's the best quarterback in the SEC, KJ Jefferson, right? The kid at Mississippi State, like that's not going to cut it. Those aren't high level quarterbacks, like first round, like difference maker type quarterbacks. They're just good college players. I think you nailed it, Danny.
Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, Shadur Sanders,
McCarthy, Ewers, Jordan Travis. Hell, I think Duke's quarterback would be the best quarterback in the SEC.
Riley Leonard.
Yes.
Without looking it up.
Drake May.
Without looking it up.
Drew Lock or anybody in the SEC right now.
Which quarterback currently has the highest passing efficiency in the SEC? Without looking it up.
Carson Beck.
Incorrect.
Oh.
Danny Bud.
It's not.
Graham Mertz.
Nope.
No,
he's ninth. Carson Beck is eighth.
We weren't
it's Jackson close. Dart. It's Jackson Dart. He's the only one with a rating over 200, and of course, Ole Miss. They had the Tulane win.
Hey, and Jackson Dart played well. I've been very critical of Jackson Dart last season. I thought he was very one-dimensional, and I thought he had a good performance against Tulane.
I'm going to go in order of passing efficiency in the SEC so far this season of qualified players: Jackson Dart, KJ Jefferson, Spencer Rattler, Brady Cook, Jaden Daniels, Will Rogers, Jalen Milroe, Carson Beck, Graham Mertz, Connor Wegman, Peyton Thorne, AJ Swan, then Joe Milton, Jordan, and Devin Leary's in last.
Coming up next on CBS, it's Jag.
I mean, it's just guys.
Yeah, it really is.
It might be when the dust settles. I mean, I liked what I saw out of Wegman. He made a couple mistakes, but I think if he continues to develop, physical tool set, he could be. But just the fact that we couldn't pick anybody right away, and again, is it top 15, top 25? I mean, there are a lot of good quarterbacks around the country that are better than what the SEC has now. It's hard to pinpoint why it is, and obviously quarterbacks can get better, and there's first-year starters and there's transfers that could settle in, but it looks to be a problem early this season.
I will say I thought Rattler played pretty well given how bad that team is around him. South Carolina has the worst offensive line in the SEC. I think it's worse than Vandy.
This might be a Rattler redemption tour for him this season.
Yeah, it'll go unnoticed because I think South Carolina will miss a bowl game now. But I thought he played pretty well. There's some chance that Carson Beck really puts it together. Like Georgia doesn't have McConkey, and we'll see. But yeah, I think Danny nailed it. Like they don't have real difference makers at the position.
The other thing is, and I saw some people saying this, about the demise of the SEC, which I think is overblown. I mean, I'll even admit that they're not going anywhere. But the transfer portal NIL market, which we thought was really all of a sudden going to consolidate the power at the top, and maybe it has with Georgia, But has that actually dispersed the talent and given other programs more opportunity?
At that position or just overall?
No, overall, in general.
I don't know, because like maybe among Power 5 teams in some ways, but the G5, P5 so far this year, the P5 has crushed the G5 in most situations. Like it hasn't. Look at what Northwestern did to UTEP. Now, granted, I think UTEP quit on Dana Dimmel and might just be a dead team walking the rest of the year. But yeah, exactly. But I don't know, Dana. That's an interesting question. My thing here is like,
because and that the conversation historically, the SEC has always been able to amass the talent because they were doing it anyway before NIL. But now all of a sudden that there's a little, and they're still spending the most money, but now that there's a chance for other schools, and I'm talking Power 5 versus Power 5, not Group of 5, that other schools are able to do it, and you're able to, go out and find players and add them to your roster. It's actually made it tougher for the SEC to have that gap.
I just think you don't deserve the benefit of the doubt this year if you're because of your non-conference performance. Like the SEC should be a one bid league,
right?
Like if Georgia doesn't win the SEC title, I don't think Georgia should go to the playoff, given who's on their schedule and given the terrible performance in the non-conference from the SEC. Like obviously, if a bunch of other conferences have 2 lost champs or something like that, that's different. But I don't think a 1-loss Georgia should be going over a 1-loss Pac-12. A 1-loss ACC or a 1-loss Big Ten type champ this year, or a 1-loss Big 12.
Is the Big Ten the next conference up?
Yeah, I think because the top 3.
Like being able to boast of what you've got up top more than the Pac-12, which has 8 teams ranked.
That's a good point.
I mean, I have my ratings that I do that exist in the vacuum that only consider anything that's happened this season. There's no prior results. To this point, through the second week of the season, the Pac-12 rates higher than the SEC. That said, I don't think that'll be the case as the season goes on. I think that back to the conversation, I think if you look at the SEC, I still think the bottom of that league is better than the bottom of every other league in the country. But the difference is the top of the league that was so dominant this last 15, 20 years at this point that has been crushing everybody else. It's not as dominant. Georgia could still be. We haven't really seen Georgia get out of neutral at any point yet this year. And we might not see Georgia get out of neutral till the playoff or the SEC championship. You don't know. But it's that tier right behind it that used to be really good too that has seemingly taken a step back compared to the top teams in other programs. And I think Texas, quote unquote, being back, USC, quote unquote, being back, Florida State, maybe even Miami, all being back. I don't think it's a coincidence that this is all happening at the same time the other top teams in the SEC kind of seem to be sliding back down to the pack.
Interesting question here from Kyle. Again, he jumped in. We always appreciate y'all who get the conversation early. Kyle says, is there a single team that you can say definitely will not win the SEC West? I want a season where everyone goes 4-4 SEC West, paying homage to the ACC Coastal.
I could name 3 teams that definitely.
Yeah,
exactly. Mississippi State, Arkansas, Auburn,
and Ole Miss.
Okay, well, I guess there's 4 because I'll say Ole Miss isn't winning it either.
I actually could see Ole Miss if they get some guys back. Like they're sneaky banged right now, so I could see them. I mean, Trey Harris got hurt. Franklin hasn't played yet at all. The UTSA kid, Prescorn was the best tight end of the transfer portal. The kid from Memphis, and he's out 2 to 4 more weeks. I think they got a lineman down right now. So I
will still take Alabama and LSU versus the field.